Hello guys and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at a scenario in which Japan made an empire. So once again I got a comment. I'm working on a few other ones. I'm doing Netherlands and Morocco today. But if you did have one, give it 2-3 days. And if I haven't posted a video about it, then I probably either didn't see it. And if I responded, then I've probably forgotten. I get per empire video I post, I get 2 or 3 new empires I have to make. So really stacks up, but let's go ahead and begin this Japanese empire with a declaration of war on Taiwan. And for this scenario, I should be mentioning a few things. First of all, it is unrealistic. This would never happen in real life. And second of all, it is tilted to Japan's favor. So, for example, here we're going to be assuming that Taiwan is independent, assuming that China stopped recognizing them, and assuming that the US won't come to their aid because this is, of course, Japan, another US ally. With that, Japan makes an island near Taipei, landing near Taipei, as Taiwan is a very difficult island to take over, and they have to capture the important cities as quick as possible before this becomes a failed invasion. They capture a good portion of northern Taiwan and push across the coast, but as I said, quite mountainous, and the Taiwanese will not stop pushing back until Japan makes a second naval landing here in southern Taiwan, and pushing around a bit more causes the island to surrender. Would it happen like that in real life? No. Would this even happen in real life? Probably not. With that, Japan is now one island stronger. And let's go ahead and continue the scenario with Japan's next declaration of war, which is of course going to be on the country of the Philippines. Now, maybe a bit more realistic, but of course Japan making an empire is already stupid. They've tried that once before. Ask them how it went. Actually, don't, but yeah, this would never happen in real life. Let's go ahead and map it out as if it would. With that, Japanese troops land in northern the Philippines and once again begin to push right down towards Manila. With the capture of the city, the Japanese begin an island hopping campaign, going from island to island in the Philippines, as they have very many. Eventually, Philippines are down to about half their normal size. After a majority of the islands fall, it's just the most southern main island left to fight. Honestly, it's not looking great here, and after Japan makes a landing, the Philippines surrenders. With the surrender of the Philippines, Japan, in real life, they're already an incredibly powerful nation, but this is only making them more and more powerful. After capturing the Philippines, their economy is still third, which is behind China, of course, and the USA. Their population is up to about 250 million with all of this, and their naval control is amazing as their enemy is China, and they have full naval control of all of the areas surrounding China. They can make a blockade of the country completely. With that, they're not done with their wars yet, as they declare war on Malaysia. With this, they also go and declare war on Brunei and on Singapore. Actually, that's not Singapore. This is Singapore, that's Indonesia. At least I think that's right. Let me know if I'm wrong though. And as I said, they also declare war on Brunei. It's multiple countries, but it's pretty much just going to be them versus Malaysia. Singapore might do some things, Brunei as well, but they won't put up much more of a challenge, and Japan wants to get them out of the way, as them and China are now fighting for influence over the South China Sea right here. China wants full control over it, and a lot of these countries used to not be able to do much about it. But Japan is not just any country, they're incredibly powerful, and with that they begin their invasion of Malaysia. They push into the less densely populated half of Malaysia on the Borneo Island. After capturing all of that, along with the country of Brunei, they begin to make a landing on the mainland, not in Singapore, but here in central Malaysia. They cut into two, take all of southern Malaysia along with Singapore, and capture Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia's capital. With that, the country pretty much just capitulates to any amount of Japanese troops, and Malaysia surrenders along with Brunei and Singapore. So yeah, now, if Japan was already seen as a decently influential global power, They are now seen as a global not minor power, but just power. If you ask me, they are minor powers, and then superpowers. Of course, in this world, the superpowers would be the USA and China. Powers would now include Russia, Japan, India. Then minor powers be like Germany, France, and the UK. Maybe Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, countries like that. Oh, Brazil is also a power. Not a minor power, but a power. With that, though, Japan is working their way up, as they're probably still behind India, but they've definitely, well, they're about the same as Russia. Considering logistics and military spending, they're actually ahead. But when it comes to sheer manpower, tanks, and whatnot, Russia is, of course, ahead. With that, they also begin to work on nuclear weapons, but before they can do that much, they declare war on Thailand, as this country of Japan wants nothing but to expand into all of their neighbors. And honestly, they're more than strong enough to do it. With that, they begin to push up from the Malay Peninsula, and it's really not going to be very difficult, as I said. They decide to spearhead up towards towards Bangkok. Not Borneo, that's the island down here. I meant to say Bangkok. They capture the city, and with Thailand being left with mostly just jungles, the country surrenders. With that, as pretty much every other country that Japan has attacked today, they are fully annexed. So, oh my god. Yep, there we go. So yeah, Japan, still just a minor power. Still just a regular power, but they're getting stronger by the day. After declaring war on Thailand, they declare war on Cambodia. And this is going to be where a few countries tell Japan to stop. That country, of course, being China, who sees Japan nearing their border and decides to do a little something to stop it. That is an alliance between a few countries, those including Myanmar, China, and North Korea, along with Kyrgyzstan. No other countries join, as Russia sees no point. Vietnam and Laos, well, they may not be joining in time. And no other countries are either allied with China enough to join in or want to. Okay, so with this new alliance forming up, Japan decides to quickly declare war on Laos and Vietnam as well, as they don't fear the countries and they see it as free land before they join this new Chinese alliance. They do this successfully, as they have already pushed into Myanmar quite a bit. And did I just say Myanmar? I meant Cambodia. They have pushed into Cambodia quite a bit and are cutting Vietnam into two, along with flooding troops into Laos, who is not at all prepared. After capturing a majority of Laos, along with pretty much all of Cambodia, Vietnam begins to fall. After all of southern Vietnam has fallen, Vietnam begins a guerrilla warfare campaign, although with the fall of Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam is forced to surrender. This leads to Japan annexing even more countries, as at this point this has just become the Philippine Empire, but stronger in every way, shape, imaginable. So yeah, this is a very, very powerful Japan. And hey, they've won influence in the South China Sea, which is probably just going to be changed to the South Japan Sea. Although considering a majority of their stuff is like here, I'm not surprised that they have full naval dominance over it. China can try all they want, but they can't get Japan to give up naval access to the area, and tensions continue to rise as Japan starts their own alliance, which is directed against China, and India finally picks a side, which is the Japanese side. With that, we see Japan has gotten their first ally, and a very powerful one at that. One with a tiny bit less power, if not the exact same. and one that is going to be very useful to them in their next war, their hardest yet. They declare war on South Korea. With that, it may look small, but South Korea is an incredibly powerful nation, probably stronger than all of Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos combined. Easily. The Japanese Navy, which is at this point one of the world's best, they're rivaling that of the USA, and when it comes to ships, that of China. They make a landing on all South Korean islands, which on this map it's pretty much just this one, and the ones right near the coast. They make a landing down here in southern Korea, capture Busan, and begin to push up the peninsula. They then spear towards Seoul, but as I said, South Korea's military is quite good and pushes Japan back. This goes in a back and forth, which leads to Japan slowly gaining land. Until eventually the borders look something like this, and Japan calls in help from, of course, India, who doesn't send their full military and doesn't officially join the war, but it's definitely going to help as Japan continues to push up the Korean peninsula, and South Korea can try all they want, but Seoul is captured and the country surrenders. With that, Japan is now a very powerful country, overtaking India and actually becoming the third strongest country. As in this world, honestly, Russia has fallen a place. I'd say China has already gotten stronger than Russia. In real life, I think they will very soon. If anything, I think they are already, and most military standards are wrong, but it's just how it is. With that, Japan now has a very, very powerful empire. Superpower, maybe actually. Maybe. But superpower to come for sure as they declare war on their next country, which is going to be their hardest yet, and that is Russia. And I'm not going to color in every single little island Russia has, as Japan isn't looking to make this a long war fighting through Siberia to get to the important parts of Russia. Their main goal here is take some land while you can, and then sue for peace. Which honestly, in this situation, not the dumbest plan. This goes into action as they make landings in both southern Russia, the island of Sakhalin, and they make many island hoppings, and into Siberia. This Siberian campaign goes exceptionally well, as Japan didn't dedicate very many troops to this, but Russia had no more than 2 or 3 battalions holding this entire front line, allowing Japan to blitz through and just capture an absolute ton of land from Russia. This is very good for them, and they continue to push into southern Russia until Russia starts to look at that suing for peace thing. Japan says they haven't gotten enough and continue their push into Russia. Although their main strategy with that is they do want to sue for peace. What they want is for Russia to think they don't, so Russia concedes more land as they think Japan is ready to fight their way towards Moscow. Of course, Japan isn't, but for this scenario, Japan is sending everything they have to make themselves look as strong as possible, as quickly as possible. Russia eventually falls for this and decides to agree to Japanese peace terms. In which, honestly, not the worst for Russia, but yeah, Russia's going to lose a lot of land. Quite a good amount of land, to say the least. With that, Japan annexes a lot of eastern Russia, including a small amount of Siberia. And as for the rest of this mineral-rich area, it is puppeted by Japan, as Japan wants all of its natural resources and whatever else it has. This is going to be a very, very useful war for Japan, as it will be in charge of funding any and all further war efforts by the Japanese military. So yeah, there we go. Russia, they've lost quite a bit. They're let off with nothing else. And Japan, as I said, is being puppeted here. This new Siberian government is being puppeted by Japan. So yeah, huge power boost for Japan, especially when it comes to resources and global influence. Now are they a superpower? Most likely, but let's go ahead and cement that position as a superpower real quick, with a few more wars for Japan to win, to prepare them for, of course, the end fight, which is going to be war with China and all their allies. Though, of course, the main one is China. With that, the Japanese Navy is now rivaling the USA's, and as for the Japanese Army, it's rivaling that of India. Very powerful country, and it only grows. With that, they basically just start stacking up on troops, and they're gonna have about one more war. No, I don't want 1,000, I want 100. What's that war gonna be? Well, it's gonna be a war with Indonesia. It's a pretty strong country with a lot of islands that's gonna be annoying for Japan to attack. But as I've already stated, Japan has an incredibly good navy. As I said, rivaling that of the USA's at this point. And Indonesia, they can try and guerrilla warfare out of this, but it's not really going to work for them. All they can do is hope to survive. With that war is declared, Japanese troops instantly push into Borneo, capturing the island, make a landing in Sumatra, and they capture that island. They attempt to take Java and the capital of Indonesia, which is Jakarta, but that's actually pushed out by the Indonesians, as Japan is making many island hopping campaigns, and this is going to turn out to be a much faster war than anyone could have ever guessed. Indonesia attempts to recapture the island of Sumatra, which originally actually goes well for them, but eventually Japanese troops arrive again and push them out. With that, they make a new landing, which is once again pushed out by the Indonesians. Japan sees no point in going for Jakarta just yet, as they make a landing on the island of New Guinea and continue to island hop their way closer and closer to the capital. Also, they declared war on East Timor too. I realized that I colored them in, that this is East Timor, but let's just say they were both declared war on because I didn't notice it originally. With that, they get very close to the island of Java and decide to make 3 landings. One over here near Sumatra, one over here near their new island hopping campaign, and one in the center to cut the island into 2. All 3 of these are successes, and 2 of them meet up to capture Jakarta. With that, pushing around a bit more causes Indonesia to capitulate. And what is Japan going to do here? Well, they're actually, believe it or not going to annex all of Indonesia, but the country is going to be puppeted for once again just to feed resources and human shields to the Japanese military. Because hey, why annex land if you can just exploit the people, exploit the land, and exploit the resources? Ask the Europeans. So yeah, let's go ahead and color this in now. That actually has to be white. So yeah, Indonesia's allowed to survive, but they're a very small southern state now, and they actually end up uniting with East Timor, as both of them are incredibly weak now. Actually, East Timor was just already super weak, but now that Indonesia is also weak, they decide to annex the country. And yeah, this is all that's left of Indonesia now. Not exactly the great island nation they once were, but hey, at least they got to survive. Puppeted, yes. Being exploited, yes. Horrible war crimes happening there that the Japanese that the Japanese censor to the world, yes, also. So are the Japanese doing some war crimey things? Honestly, most, if not all, empires have done it at one point. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and assume that Japan is doing some frowned upon things on the world stage in order to get this empire of theirs. With that, Papua New Guinea is next, but honestly, the country is weak. Japan pretty much just says, join me. Papua New Guinea says no. Japan says, okay, sends in a few battalions. hey, look at that, the country doesn't exist anymore. So yeah, with that, Papua New Guinea is gone, and Japan just starts annexing a whole lot of Pacific islands. Just all these random islands that are probably at the bottom of the ocean by now. Yeah, Japan wants them. Don't ask me why, but they do. They start making landings, and eventually all of them are captured. With the Japanese influences down here in Australia and New Zealand, just trying to keep the two countries in check, as they are American allies before Japanese. And honestly, who isn't scared of this empire? With that though, Japan prepares their military for their final war here, a war against China. With that, they actually don't declare war on China directly. They declare war on Myanmar, which is of course going to bring China into the conflict as they are in an alliance with them. Which, yeah, China, you may not have wanted to ally yourself with weaker countries, but hey, I guess anything helps. War is officially declared, and while Japanese troops begin to flood into Myanmar, China activates an article of their alliance and joins in. With that, this is going to be Japan's most difficult war yet, by far. You know, South Korea was hard, Russia was pretty hard. Yeah, they were both pretty hard, but you know what's way harder than that? Also, I'm pretty sure this is Russian, but we're going to put in the blue team because I never originally colored it in. We'll color it in later. We do see Japan calling in their ally, though, which, if you forgot, is India. With that, of course, Pakistan does join, though. And we can see this being the final war of the video. The largest, of course, as always. With that, Japanese troops continue to flood into Myanmar as they want to meet up with India as fast as possible. This goes incredibly well as the two countries meet up and begin to push into China from Southeast Asia. While this is happening, they also begin to push into North Korea and out from Russia, as Chinese troops were of course prepared for this, but nobody can be prepared enough to face the full might of the Japanese Empire. With that, Indian troops also begin to push into Pakistan, but although we're going to be assuming the blue team is less powerful here, they still make a small push into northern India, and they actually, well, that's about the only push they can make. They attempt to land on the island of Taiwan, but the Japanese Navy is too powerful and keeps them out. They continue their push into northern India, hoping to knock India out of the war, as that would be insanely good for the blue team. Getting India out of this war, New Delhi is captured along with Delhi and a lot of other important cities in India. Meanwhile, the Indian army takes over all of southern Pakistan, which is not nearly as important, although the Indians will be pushing back, as now that their focus is off of Pakistan, and China and Pakistan have to focus fully on Japan. India can have their way in pushing them back. If you're wondering why China has to focus on Japan, it's because the full might of the Japanese Empire is absolutely destroying them over here in Manchuria. Pretty much the whole region is captured within a month, and honestly, that amazing Chinese army, navy, and air force that we've seen has nothing against this new, incredibly well-prepared Japanese Empire, which is once again unrealistic, maybe buffed, but in the end, this is still an incredibly powerful country. With that, Myanmar is fully captured, and I'm pretty sure North Korea was already fully captured. Let me just check. Yep, they were. Full Chinese troops retreat from northern India, leaving just Pakistan, who puts up a pretty good fight, actually, surprisingly, against India. But in the end, they won't be able to do much, as without any Chinese assistance, Pakistan is beginning to crumble. This is seen as Islamabad is captured, Pakistan is cut off from China, and the country surrenders. Also, this was after multiple months. I'm mapping it out incredibly fast. It would never happen this fast. And Pakistan is fighting. Like, multiple rebel groups are popping up, and India's having to leave so many troops, probably around 100 to 200,000 troops, just behind here in Pakistan, if not 300, 400,000 troops left here in Pakistan to quench all the rebellions that are happening. With this, China is actually able to push back India slightly, as they are having to deal with way too many rebellions, which are causing them a huge distraction from the Chinese border. This isn't enough to save China down here in Southeast Asia, though, as both Japanese and Indian troops are flooding in to southern China. This is also seen over here in northern China, as both sides begin a spearhead to meet up and cut China in two. Of course, the more powerful coastal areas and the weaker, like Tibet and Xinjiang area. With that, we see actually some rebels pop up in China, with Xinjiang rebelling and Tibetan rebels also as well. This is incredibly beneficial for the red team, as it would have taken literal months of losing 3 times as many manpower and equipment as China to take over Tibet, but with the area just rebelling, they can get it with ease. Same thing with Xinjiang, it's just much more convenient where an area joins you instead of you having to fight your way for it. Most Chinese troops in the region either surrender, are captured, or killed by the red team here. While they dedicated so many troops to western China, though, the East managed to push back slightly, as they didn't want to lose all their land just yet. Yeah, just yet. With that, though, the Japanese and the Indians are forced to allow Mongolia to join. They agreed to it, as they promised Mongolia some land, and they didn't want to risk being cut off over here in northern China. The new country only strengthens their front, though, as they're getting support from Japanese puppets, aka this new Siberian country, and down here in Indonesia. So yeah, China is really falling here, as Japan begins to push along the coast together with Indian troops, which is going very well. As I've stated multiple times, the Japanese Navy here is incredibly powerful, and pushing around the coast is incredibly well supplied, and the cities were already weakened by months of bombardment by Japanese troops and Air Force. They begin to push towards Beijing, but the city is well defended, and this is the final push for China, as the majority of the country's gone, and they actually surrender a bit more of the inland, as they have to protect the coastline at all costs. The Chinese here are already seeing no hope, but of course some propaganda and whatnot forces literally almost every Chinese citizen left into service. China starts their last push, as this is just a way of trying to kill as many Japanese as you can. They lose 2 million people while doing this. Let me remind you, 2 million people die for this. With that, they just continue to recruit and send out human meat shields. This goes decently successfully, as they push back quite a bit. But overall, they've lost about 5 million people with this to regain this much land, and the Japanese and Indians have lost less than 1 million. So if you look at it that way, by casualties, Japan and India have by far won that fight, and now China has no more equipment to use to fight back, as I said, that was their final push. They used every last anything they had, whilst at the same time recruiting so many people that the industries were on a labor shortage. This happens again, as China kills another 2 million people trying to push back the Indians and Japanese. There's another battle, 3 million Chinese people die. This has already led to so much death, and China's just making it worse and worse. There go another 1 million Chinese people, another 5 million right there. In the time that Japan and India combined have lost less than 2 million. With that, they just continue to push up the coast, ignoring any Chinese effort at pushback. As we all know how it's going to end, both the Japanese-Indian alliance actually has more manpower than the Chinese, seeing as they both have humongous populations. And China really isn't going to stand much longer, as the Battle of Beijing happens, and leading to 3 million Chinese deaths with less than 1 million Japanese and Indians. China here has completely fallen. They recruit another 3 or 4 million people to their army, but it's not going to be enough because nothing is, and China is forced to surrender. With that, let's begin with the peace treaty, with, of course, North Korea being annexed by Japan, and the rest of this is going to be a peace treaty. Yeah, let's go and put it in, with India annexing a good portion of land from Pakistan as the first event of the peace treaty, as Japan wants to appease their allies before giving themselves the land they want. They also do this by giving India all of Kashmir and more, like a good amount more. This is, as I said, more than just the disputed lands. This consists of some more Chinese and Pakistani lands. With that, we also see them taking about half of Myanmar, I want to say, pushing up into China, and holy crap, this India is almost as powerful as the Indian Empire, just by making an alliance with Japan. Give me a second. Okay. So yeah, this India is incredibly powerful here. Definitely top 3 in strength. Obviously, Russia's been put down. The USA, actually Japan might be first when it comes to strength after this. This Japanese empire is going to have an insane population, economy, etc., 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 etc. So yeah, let's go ahead and draw in these new Japanese borders, which is going to consist of a majority of the Chinese coast, except for a few pieces that China is permitted to keep in return for basically nothing. China is left alive so that they may be puppeted and once again exploited by the Japanese. With that, as I said, a majority of China's coast is gone, along with pretty much all of its economy. As for Mongolia, yeah, they gain a bit of land. I mean, can they really complain? They did almost nothing. And they're getting a good amount of land for it. So yeah, let's finish drawing in these borders, and then I'll show you what we're left with as our new Japanese empire. As for any independences that are gotten, obviously Tibet and Xinjiang are both given independence, although Tibet is an Indian puppet and Xinjiang is a Japanese puppet. So independence is a strong word there. With that, as I said, Xinjiang and Tibet are gone. This is what's left of China, and let's color in the rest of this red. No, actually, Pakistan is also still a country, although to the dismay of 100 million people, all Pakistanis are now, well, the Pakistani government is now an Indian puppet regime. So yeah, after all of that, Pakistan is now a puppet of the country they hate the most. At least I'm guessing, yeah, that's the country they hate the most. The Pakistanis hate the Indians and the Indians the Pakistanis. That's just how it is. With that, let's go ahead and finish drawing in all these borders before I can really show you what this world looks like. So once again, India, holy crap, is now a very strong country, 3rd strongest in the world. With Japan, I still can't make up my mind, are they first or are they second? Well, technically in the future, it's actually predicted that with no change in any other world events, China will overtake the US by, I think it was like 2100 or a bit after that, with their population being so much higher and their economy growing faster. Combine that with all Japan and all of the new lands they've acquired, along with all the puppets they have, their allies, and everything else that there's to take into consideration when seeing what's the most powerful country on Earth. I gotta give it to Japan here. Normally my emperors just get stronger, but in this case, I think I've given Japan the most powerful country in the world. With that, the Indians now have their land. Let's move on to the next one, which is going to be Mongolia's land. We're coloring in their allies first, of course. Gotta get the retention time. But Mongolia, as I said, they aren't getting much, but honestly, Mongolia's did almost nothing except help supply India and Japan. So they're not gonna get much land, although they get a good amount of Manchuria. No coastal access quite yet, but looks like not being able to land on Japan ended up helping you in an alliance with them. So yeah, Mongolia, not the most powerful country in the world, but definitely top, what is that, like 50 now? Still not very strong at all. Not top 75. Hey, you know what? Top 100 for sure, Mongolia, top 100. Wait, wouldn't that mean that if at this point, obviously some other parts of the world would change in the time that Japan is making their empire? Would that mean that they are better than half the world? Depends on how many new countries there are. The only new one that we know is happening, I'm pretty sure, is Bougainville over here on this island. But of course, with Japan going there, wait, no, actually, it's not that island. It's this island. I don't know which island it is. I think it's this one, but maybe I'm wrong. I'll let you know in the next video. Let's just go ahead and finish coloring in all these new Japanese lands. As yes, they're definitely most powerful, populated. India at this point has about 1.7 billion people. In real life, they'd have about 1.5, but with the added lands, maybe they'd be close to the 2 bill mark. Or would Japan hit the 2 bill mark first? It's weird, but the population race is between 2 allies. Then again, who's strong? I mean, obviously Japan is the strongest country in the world at this point. Look at this empire. But yeah, when it comes to population, what does this have? I can't give you an exact number. It looks about almost 100, 200, 300, 400, 1.5 billion. Maybe more, maybe like 1.7 or even more billions of people. This is a very populated country. The economy is amazing. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.